And how's everyone doing? Thank you, thank you, thank you. My name's Lindsay Vigoda, and I'm super excited you all are here for our panel. The panel is Civic Engagement and Entrepreneurs' Case for Advocacy. If you are at the wrong panel, too bad, you're here. So glad you can be stuck. We have 5 amazing panelists who are going to share their stories about entrepreneurship and civic engagement. And I know you guys might be confused why I'm holding a mic. This is just for the camera. There's not actually anything going to be projecting. So if you guys are having trouble hearing any of us, just do a quick little, speak up or quietly be like, I can't hear you. We're going to try our best to use our teacher voices. So thank you, welcome. We're really excited to have all of you here. And I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator, Jason.
Hello, everyone, and yeah, it'll be weird with this mic, but I'm Jason. Thanks again for having us. Denver Startup Week, thanks for allowing us to be here as well. Again, my name's Jason. My job is to thank our sponsors. So we want to start off today with our presenting sponsor, Amazon, as well as our title sponsors, who are Capital One, Dell Technologies, and Downtown Denver Partnerships. And then we would also like to thank our track sponsors. Not going to read all of those to you at the moment. And then we have some other sponsors as well. I also want to give a huge shout out to our headline sponsors today, our partner sponsors, as well as our member sponsors. So I'm sure you all know it takes a village to make this thing happen. I believe Denver Startup Week is the largest free startup week in the nation. So lots going on, but it's very exciting for us to all be here. So thanks for being here today. So once again, my name is Jason Green. I'm the Director of Membership and Communications for an amazing organization called Good Business Colorado. A little bit about myself. I am a Colorado native, so one of the rare ones that are here, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I'm a father, have 2 children, married. I went to Colorado State University as well. I am an entrepreneur, aside from working with Good Business Colorado. So I'm a DJ. I have a small entertainment company where I do events. I'm also a benefit auctioneer, so I absolutely love helping nonprofits raise money. It's kind of a passion of mine. So anything music and in that realm, would love to help. And again, we'll tell you a little bit more about Good Business Colorado in just a second.
And again, I'm Lindsay Vigoda. I'm just going to be standing up for a hot second while I change slides. I'm the Colorado Director for Small Business Majority. I am a social worker by education, and I fell in love with systemic change, which is why I'm at Small Business Majority. I've been here for about 3.5 years, a little over, and I will explain what Small Business Majority is right now. Whew. Thank you. Oh, you gem. We are a national nonprofit with offices in many different states, including Colorado. We care about entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurs thrive. And we do this in a number of ways, but particularly educational resources and events just like this, but also advocacy, which is why I'm here. And I'll hand it over to Jason to talk a little bit about Good Business Colorado, and then we'll dive right into our panel.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. So Good Business Colorado is a grassroots organization. We are made up of over 450 businesses that are all values-driven. So we believe that businesses should operate in a way that focuses on a prosperous economy, equitable communities, and sustainable environment. The reason that our organization is awesome is because we represent businesses like yours at the state legislature. So we believe that everyone can make a difference and a change. There's a huge number of us, which we'll have some facts later about just what small business means to Colorado. So if we work together, there's a lot that we could do together. So if you want any information, I'll be around afterwards. And thanks for listening. All right, so we're going to dive right into our session. Again, civic engagement and entrepreneurs' case for advocacy. So we often feel like small business. Well, first off, who out of here owns a small business or who is an entrepreneur? It takes a lot of work. So first off, thanks for doing what you do. We know that it takes a lot of hard work, and sometimes you want to give up, but you want to keep going. But to be an entrepreneur, especially a small business, it takes a lot of work and hardship, and that's one of the things that good business creates as a community to help with action and making sure that we're focusing on change. But with that, I'm sure there's times when you want to succeed. There's times when you're like, hey, I just want to give up. But there's a large number of small businesses in Colorado, and so again, I'll give you some facts in just a little while. But the focus of today is just to make sure and empower you all that as an entrepreneur, as a small business, even if it's a solopreneur, you guys can actually have a voice and make a difference. So that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on today. So our panel all have very different experiences. They'll be sharing the ups and the downs as well. But again, the purpose is just to make sure that you all know kind of what you can do as a small business or an entrepreneur or a small entrepreneur or a solopreneur to make a positive change around you. We are going to begin by introducing our amazing panelists, and so I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Sydney Jackson Claxton. She is a Colorado State... You're a big deal, Sydney. Big deal here. So, Sydney Jackson Claxton is a Colorado State University alum with a BS in Natural Resource Recreation and Tourism and a Master's of Tourism Management. Sydney is a certified coach, public speaker, retreat designer, and author. I don't know when she sleeps. She owns Citrine Unlimited LLC and works part-time as an entrepreneurial trainer and coach with the Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute. Sydney loves volunteering with youth, and her mission is to use her business as a tool to empower and mobilize clients. Once again, let's hear it for Sydney, ladies and gentlemen.
The next person I'm going to introduce, wow, did you guys mean to line up in order? Thank you so much. Is Sarita Parikh, the co-owner of Glow and Gather. Sarita's lived experience growing up Indian American guided her passion for social, economic, and environmental justice and the recognition that all is connected. She's the co-founder of Glow and Gather, a retail lifestyle and wellness brand that believes in social impact, sustainability, spreading joy, and encouraging simple and healthy living. She is also the founder of Mind, Body, and Play Therapies, a physical therapy private practice focusing on creating optimum health and wellness. Can we give it up for Sarita? Thank you.
Up next, I have the pleasure of introducing Representative Naquita Ricks. She's from House District 40, a small business owner and the president and co-founder of the African Chamber of Commerce, Colorado. Representative Naquita Ricks is the first African immigrant to be elected to the Colorado General Assembly and the first Liberian American to be elected to any state legislature. When she was only 13, she was forced to flee civil war in Liberia, and her family settled in Aurora, Colorado. Representative Ricks received her undergraduate degree in accounting at MSU and her MBA from the University of Colorado, Denver. She then went to operate a successful small mortgage brokerage business and found the African Chamber of Commerce, Colorado, USA. As a leading black woman in business and politics, she works tirelessly to improve her community by helping build economic knowledge and by championing the rights of immigrants and refugees. For her clients, Representative Ricks has been recognized with the following awards, and there's a lot. So, Habitat for Humanity's 2021 Legislator of the Year, the 2021 Colorado Bankers Association Spurs Award, the 2021 LGBTQ Chamber Legislator of the Year, the 2022 Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network Liberty Award, and is a member of the Healthier Colorado's Leadership Circle. Let's give it a round of applause once again for Naquita Ricks.
And then we got Jeff Rogoff.
Can't live up to that.
I know, hard one to follow. All right, so we all have to give it up for Jeff after I'm done speaking. Yeah, okay, yep. Jeff has worked in the restaurant industry since his first job doing dishes and mopping floors at summer camp in 1987. He has done various restaurant jobs over the past 28 years, bussing, expediting, bartending, bar managing, and floor manager. And between all those restaurant jobs, he's also flirted with many other employments such as tennis instructor, lab work, carpet layer, chairlift operator, river raft guide, liquor merchandiser, liquor sales, band manager, and father. In late 2004, the idea of opening a restaurant was starting to form. 2 years later, 2 years of planning, testing recipes, raising 2 young boys, and gaining all the information possible to be a successful restaurant owner, Saza was born. In June of 2006, with an 8-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, Saza opened their doors, and as they say, the rest is history. Give it up for Jeff.
I don't know about you all, but I feel like my brain works like Jeff's, right? Lots of opportunities, not enough time. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aaron Zimola, the owner, founder of Zova Marketing. Let's hear it for Era. Aaron Zimola is the owner and founder of digital marketing agency Zova Marketing. Zova Marketing focuses on providing digital marketing solutions to the entertainment, tourism, and nonprofit industries. Aaron's approach to business has always been people-centric with an emphasis on business ethics. Aaron and Zova Marketing have won numerous ethics awards, including a Daniels Ethic Initiative Award and the Better Business Bureau Spark Award for Entrepreneurship. Once again, let's hear it for Aaron.
All right, let's finally get into this panel. Let's do it. All right, so this is a question for all the panelists, and as you go down the line, please remember to use your speaking voice, your teacher voice as you may, and also use the microphone so our video guys can capture it. But the first question is, tell us about your business briefly. How did you get started? What has your journey been? And why do you care about civic engagement? Now, the next part I'm going to ask you all is kind of hard. I ask that you keep it to around 2 minutes because we have a lot of questions. So thank you. Whoever wants to start can start with the microphone.
Uh-oh. Looks like I have it. So my business started in 2006. It's called Saza. We do pizza salads. Anyone have any idea how I got the name Saza? I just gave it away. She's good! Put salad and pizza together, Saza. So that's how we came up with the name. So since 2006, we've been open. We just celebrated 16 years. The difference, I think, with our business, maybe than other restaurants or other, especially pizza places, is we focus on organic food, local food. Supporting the local economy is hugely important to me. So it's kind of our niche, I guess, a little bit, and something that is more than just going to work and trying to make a dollar, also trying to make a difference and trying to do the right thing. It's always been an important part of what I do every day. How did I get started? Good question. How did I get stuck in this, you mean? I've always been in the restaurant industry. I can remember back in high school, as I think was mentioned earlier, my first job working in the kitchen where I mopped floors and did dishes, and I loved it. As crazy as that may sound, the excitement of that business has always been part of the reason I enjoyed. I think the ADHD part of me enjoys doing 1,000 things at one time, and it works well for me. So I've always enjoyed the industry and worked in it for the past 30 years. When I had my first son, myself and my wife at the time decided I can't be a bartender or a floor manager and working crazy hours, and what are we going to do? And at that point I said, well, this is what I know. Let's open up our own place where we don't stay open until 2 a.m. and I can kind of have a normal life. So that was kind of the beginnings of the idea of opening up my own place. Is this the whole question? The first? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not moving ahead. Why do you care about civic engagement? I think it's been ingrained in me from a very young age. My folks were very involved in my background is I'm Jewish, and it's called tzedakah, is about giving. So that was an important part of my childhood, is going to places where we could help and give when we could. I think that's part of it. I also had now I'm moving ahead, I think. I'm going to save that story for another time because it's so great. So yeah, I think it's just part of who I am, and following in what my folks believed in, and we continuing on with that, and has always been part of who I am. I think that was it. Was that answering? Did I do my 2 minutes? Okay.
You're doing great.
But I can keep talking. That's never been an issue for me.
Someone take away the
Who would like to answer that first question?
I'll go next.
That sounds great, Naquita.
So for me, my small business is Network Financial Group. Is a mortgage company that helps people achieve the dream of home ownership. And I started in 2002 after I left corporate America, and rode the waves of the economy as far as mortgages. 2008 to 2012, of course, we started that whole mortgage meltdown. We rode that wave. In 2015, it was very clear that for the small immigrant businesses in Colorado, there was no Chamber of Commerce. Everybody had a Chamber of Commerce. So me, along with some other founders and small entrepreneurs, we launched the African Chamber of Commerce in 2015. Today in 2022, we have engaged in so many things that have impacted our community, and I'll save some of that for later. But it's important as far as why do I care about civic engagement. I think, we have to give back. I've always been interested in community service, even before I got elected for office. I served on the Aurora Public School Education Foundation Board, where we raised money for high school students to go to college. I've served on my church board as a treasurer. I've just done a lot of different things and volunteered in the community. I think it's very, very important that we give back and to help people achieve whatever their goals are and get, have their best lives. And so I think it's important for us to stay engaged.
For me, both my businesses started the same way, by my saying, I'm never going to do this. This is never going to happen. And then I started both companies. My physical therapy private practice, one of the reasons I said I'm never going to do it is I didn't want to deal with insurance companies and the billing, and I do all of that myself. So it's really taught me a lot about the way the insurance companies work, the system. And I've also learned a lot through my healthcare practice about all the inequities in the healthcare system. And both of those things led me towards burnout in healthcare, really. And so I had to back away from my practice and really not do quite as much. And that's when I started Glow and Gather, which my niece and nephew had tried to convince me to start with them for a couple years before I said, I guess this is what I'm doing next. And so when we started Glow and Gather, it really was, yes, we're going to do these products, but it's really going to be a platform for having our voice heard and social impact, and what is the best way to utilize this company to create change and create impact. And that's really where we were taking Glow and Gather. Because I really do believe small businesses have a place in the community to create community and help communities thrive, especially locally and more regionally. It's the small businesses that really create that community and support thriving communities. And as small business owners, we really have that responsibility and that opportunity to be stewards and create the communities and the world we want to live in and the world we want to pass on to future generations. So I really think that's an important part of being a business owner. And there's so many different ways to do it, whether it's legislative advocacy or you've got employees that you can help. Democracy is such an important part, so you can engage your employees and teach them about democracy and getting those ballots in. If you don't want to be politically engaged in the legislature and have your company be biased one way or the other, you can at least be nonpartisan, help your employees and your community get involved in a nonpartisan way. So there's so many ways that we can lead as small business owners, and I think that's really important to keep a thriving economy.
I know, it's always like, when do I clap? So, and I'm trying to project. I'm using my inside voice, my at-home inside voice, because this is how I yell at my partner and my niece. No, it's way worse when I yell. So, anyway, I own Citrine Unlimited. It's a coaching and consulting firm, and I do a lot of other things too. And I also work part-time with our MMFI. Shout out. Some of you are here, yeah. But really, what I do in my business is really helping to encourage people to move past their imposter syndrome. I do a lot of leadership development, and so a lot of folks don't realize that leadership starts even within your own home. You know, the way you talk to your partner, the way you talk if you have kids or fur babies, you know. Sometimes I threaten them, like, you're not coming back inside ever, but then I let them in. But really, the way that you, like, treat the people that you're around on a daily basis. So all of us in this room are leaders. And when I think about how I got to where I am, it really did start with my civic engagement, being at home. My mom is such a huge inspiration for me. She not only was a foster parent, and I watched these two boys that she had in her home. You know, they were highly abused. One, his arm was broken and broke because his mom never took him back to the doctors. He was biting his younger brother because he didn't know how to handle stress. So it really started with seeing what she was doing to work with just two individuals, you know, two kids. And then my mom became a host home provider. So over the last 23 years, she's been working with adults who have neurodiversities and physical disabilities. They actually lived in home with us. So I was that kid where other kids would come over and be like, who are these people and why are they here? And so it was a really cool conversation from early on to talk about advocacy for individuals who have disabilities. And that's just, I mean, throughout my whole life, you know, I'm a survivor of police brutality. Just seeing all of these things happening around me, happening in my community, I knew I had to, in my opinion, step up and speak up at some point and be a catalyst for change. And I know each of us in here can do that too, in our own way. And there's different ways to do it. So I'm really excited to be on this panel because we all do it in different ways.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm the owner and founder of Zova Marketing. We're rounding the 6-year mark that we've been in business. The way that this business started was actually kind of interesting, kind of a long story, but at one point I was the owner of the largest hemp company in the world, and we had retail stores and cut and sew operations. That ended very abruptly and in a fiery fashion. So that's when I started to have to get into some of the legislative work because there was a lot of miscommunication happening between the federal government and the state government and local municipalities. And actually, my team and I were one of the pioneers of how hemp was different from marijuana and how those needed to be separately legislated and not just under the cannabis umbrella. So we had worked with a lot of legislators and a lot of different people to do that. And one of the biggest things that I realized is education is so important with this because there's just so much incorrect information about how things are happening and how things are actually going. So I looked at education. Actually, when I was in high school, I started that company, and I was working against, I don't know if anybody remembers Senate Bill 191, which was the Teachers Effectiveness Act, which ended up being a complete disaster. But I was working with that and realized that there are people that if they speak up and they do things, they can actually start to make a difference. So after Happy Hempo was the name of the company, after we had to close the doors on that, the company that we bought our sewing machines from for our cut and sew operation to make suits. By the way, this is not hemp, in case anybody was wondering. I'm not wearing hemp right now. But we, they contacted me and they said, hey, you were an international brand. In 3 years, you had all of this media, you were doing all this cool stuff. Would you mind marketing us? And I said, okay, sure, I'll do that. And so that's how Zova Marketing started. And soon we realized that there are a lot of maybe fishy practices in the marketing world, and I'm sure everybody's probably experienced some of that at some point in marketing. And so we made it our goal not to only try and be one of the most ethical marketing agencies that exists, but also to back that up with civic engagement and involvement in legislation and other things that really do affect not just our company and the people we employ, but also all of our clients who really sometimes need a voice and don't know how to navigate things. And so that's been really our goal. And it's helped tremendously because you meet a lot of great people actually when you're getting civically engaged. I think that's one of the biggest things is the people you work with. You start to really form a community that becomes powerful, and everybody starts to feel like they have a voice instead of just one person shouting in the wind. So that's my biggest thing, is just really working with people and making connections like on this panel. Everybody here is awesome. And so, that's what it's really all about, is a collective community of people working together to make stuff happen and to help the community.
Thanks so much. Yeah, a lot of information, and we've got a star-studded panel here, so I'm honored to be a part of it. So we're going to jump into our second question here, and Aaron, you can keep the mic because you're up for this one. So for Jeff, Aaron, and Sarita, what are the biggest challenges you face as a business owner? And we'll do a couple of sentences if you could. If you can, I don't know. Or is that the challenge?
That's the challenge.
Just what are the biggest challenges you face as a business owner? And we'll start with you, Aaron.
Okay, so, I think everybody as a business owner probably has a lot of different challenges that we face every day. One of the biggest things, and I've been talking about people, but one of the biggest things for us has recently been people. Because there is a mentality shift, there is a mindset change that's happening in our society. And from a marketing perspective, it is very apparent that this is happening. People are being in hybrid events, they're going virtual, there is work from home now. And the main thing that we are having a challenge with is just how to keep our sense of community with the people we're working with when now there are such big distances between us, and using technology as the catalyst to keep that community. It's different, and we all know that, and that's been our biggest challenge, but I think there are going to be some really great innovations coming up and some great ways to really bring that community back together. But that's been one of the biggest things that COVID just sort of like launched, was that everybody was separated, and how do we keep that sense of community with being so separate physically from each other? And I think we're on a good path. Like, we're all here now, so.
Awesome, Aaron. Thank you so much. Jeff, same question. So what are the biggest challenges you face as a business owner?
Which one to choose, I guess, would be first. But I think, as Aaron was saying, in a little bit different way for me, the labor market is definitely a challenge. Finding people to work. Now, when I put out an ad for someone, say on Indeed or ZipRecruiter, it can go a week without even getting a response. And I would say for every 10 responses I get, maybe one person shows up for a interview. So, that's a challenge. And I think for me, more specifically, being a restaurant owner, I have to wear a lot of different hats. I have to be a chef. Have to know my recipes and be on top of my food and know everything about each item. And of course, I'm very specific about what we put in our food, so making sure I can get organic, and with supply lines right now being difficult, that's been a challenge. I have to be a marketer, so I wear that hat. How do I market my business? I have to be a psychologist. I have 20 employees, most of them under the age of 22. So that's always a challenge, and I work side by side with everyone. It's not like I'm not at my business. Last week I put in about 50 hours, which isn't crazy compared to when I first opened, but I'm with my staff at all times, so we're a team. So I guess in that sense, I'm a sociologist, in the sense that I have to figure out how we work together as a team. So I think those are some of the big challenges for a restaurant owner. Obviously, our margins are very slim compared to a lot of other businesses, so I have to be an accountant on top of that and figure out how these numbers work. And with recent increases in inflation that we're seeing, that's hit me too. And how do I counteract that? Do I raise my prices? Do I have to cut staff? Do I, what options do I have right now? And you have to get creative. So there's that aspect of it. So it can be challenging. Oh, handyman, that's one too. Forgot about that. Because things break all the time in the restaurant industry. So I've learned how to fix ice machines and ovens and all things I never knew about. But wow, I could teach a course on that alone. So there's a lot of different challenges, but that's what makes it fun. And you got to have a positive attitude and accept those, and hopefully not bring it down. But it can be tough sometimes, for sure.
Thanks so much for sharing, Jeff. And then last but not least on this question, and go for it, Sarita.
So for me, I think one of the things I always say is that you have to absolutely be true and authentic to your values and your mission. And so in order to stay the course when you're trying to run and grow a business, you're always constantly looking back at those values and that mission and trying to stay true to those, which means you're constantly not only changing course and creating a new path for yourself, and we're really creating a path that doesn't exist for us, but also that means that a lot of times we're turning down opportunities because they're not aligned with our values. So we could financially grow more, but because it's not in alignment with who we are, with our values, we won't take that partnership, we won't take that opportunity, because we truly, truly do want to be who we are authentically. And so I think that's a challenge. We know that we're laying a stronger foundation, and we know that, but we also know that means that our growth is going to be slower, and that our path is something that we can't look at the business books, or we can't, it's just a different path that we're creating for ourselves. And I think it's a different way of doing things, and it's valuable to us, and it's great for us, but it is harder because we're constantly changing what we're doing, and we're constantly having to create something new. But also, as we all learned last week, and when we first started, one of the companies that we said we wanted to be like was Patagonia. And as we've learned last week, they have created a whole new world and a whole new path. And so it is possible, and I think we can each do it in our own way. It's just a harder way to do it.
Thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask is for Representative Ricks and Sydney. And what are some of the business-related struggles that you have addressed through civic engagement?
And yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I want to first start off with COVID. COVID was a big deal. So the African Chamber had to do a lot of, we basically served for the immigrant community as a resource place. We did, during COVID, of course, everything shut down. So you had all of these businesses that could not pay their rent. There were no customers coming. You had your kids that were at home now, and where they used to eat 2 meals a day at school, you had all of the food now to pay, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and, people were just overwhelmed. So for the African immigrant, or just the immigrant community and the Black community, the African Chamber stepped in and started doing weekly town halls. We provided much needed information on, where could you find help with your utilities? Where were the food banks at? Where, we had government officials and city officials, county officials come to talk and address questions that community members had. Because people were just out of sorts. Everything was strange. So weekly we had people just tune in we even hosted the governor. Governor Polis came on to address, the community. But what we did there was to help. We saw a lot of small businesses also who could not get the PPP loans. They didn't qualify, they didn't have the paperwork, they didn't know what to do, they didn't understand. There were cultural differences, language differences, and all these different issues that cropped up. And we helped to try to navigate some of those things to see what we could do to get them help through the Office of Economic Development and Trade, or whether or not, we could maybe reapply for some PPP or EIDL applications, which were small business loans that people needed in order to keep their businesses afloat. So as a representative, I got elected in 2020. One of the things I do, I'm a mortgage broker, and that's my profession. So I was approached by Habitat for Humanity, and they had this idea, one of the biggest things that stops people from getting a house is either the credit or the debt to income ratio. So we worked on the bill that created a pilot program that allows for tenants to report their rental history on their credit report. That program just started and was initiated. It's being managed by CHAFA. And so CHAFA has started that program in the last maybe 2 months. They've recruited over 100 participants. There's about 7 landlords that are participating. And it's a very diverse group of people from, the metro area to Pueblo to rural. We were looking at diversities, black, brown, different, immigrant communities. We wanted to make sure that we could get like a good subset of our population. And based on initial reports, the program is going to be successful. On average, in the first month, there was over a 30-point increase on credit bureaus. One person opted to include like 3 years of their rental history on their credit report, and their credit score, according to CHAFA, increased 200 points. So we're like really, really excited about what that could be. It's still being proved out right now. And by the time, like maybe within the next year or so, I hope to be able to take this statewide. And so that's something that's coming. But there's so many things. I mean, making sure that our small businesses, black, brown businesses, immigrant businesses, people who are typically left out are included in the way that we write the grants. Because sometimes, the legislation is skewed toward big businesses and people who know how to navigate the system. So you have a lot of people who are left out. So we make sure that our legislation is inclusive and that we're able to get, everybody to participate. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Rep. Ricks. And Sydney, same question for you. What are some business-related struggles that you have addressed through civic engagement?
Okay. So I really appreciate what Representative Ricks was saying in regards to really looking at an industry or something that really well. I really appreciate, by the way, what you did with the rental, having that go towards credit score, because I know that would make a huge difference for a lot of people, even like myself. But as a solopreneur and an entrepreneur, it can be really scary to figure out, like, where do I start? Like, I have a voice and I want to say something, but I'm not quite sure what to say. And I will tell you, by partnering with folks like Good Business Colorado, I've actually been able to have someone like sit down to me and say, this is how you go to the state capitol and talk about a piece of legislation that you would like to have passed or that you're against. I had my first experience, I think 2 years ago, with the Crown Act. That was something really near and dear to my heart. I have her out today. I pulled my crown out, right? But that was something really near and dear to my heart because I have had employers in the past before tell me that the way that my hair was completely unprofessional. And if I decided to show up the way I had to work, that I needed to go home and change my look so I could fit in with what their aesthetic was. I've also had strange women come up to me and pet my head like a dog. So that's another thing. So I made sure to speak up about that, but I was terrified. And so it was really nice because someone in office was like, you know what if I go with you and actually like show you what it's like and you can decide to speak, or if you want to speak day of, we'll put your name on the list day of. And that was really nice to know that there is support out there. So if I wanted to speak up, I can. I also talked a little bit about healthcare and the impact that it has on being a solopreneur, being a small business owner, as an employee. I've been an employee before, all the way to actually just sitting on a board, right? So I sit on a board for an org called Guided by Humanity. They're an all-abilities yoga studio. They're for everyone, and people think about the yoga community being just about exercise, but it's more than that, right? And it's not very acceptable of folks who have accepting, at least in the US, of people who have physical disabilities. They used to try to go to a studio and host classes, and they're like, oh, your wheelchairs will scuff up the floors. Or they didn't have bathrooms that were accessible. So just by being on the board and be able to like help them stay in their studio that they now have, being able to show up and do some advocacy work with them or for them, and speak on their behalf has been really empowering. So there's many ways that I've been able to take what's personally important in my heart and what I see in my community and really implement some civic engagement around those topics.
Thank you, Sydney. So my next question, yes, round of applause. So my next question is for Jeff and Sarita. I know both of you have had a lot of opportunities to be in the press for civic engagement, whether it be CNN, Wall Street Journal, Colorado Sun, Colorado Politics. Both of you have been, have used your voice in that way for civic engagement. So my next question is, what business benefits have you seen through your own civic engagement? And I ask that you keep your questions to about a minute.
Okay. So for me, I would say I think it's built a strong sense of community, whether it's with people that like this, networking, but also with like customers who see that and they actually love that we're doing civic engagement and standing up for causes and using our voices, and that it's just not some random social media post that we're doing, and that they see that we're actively doing something. And that's what we hear back, that we love your company because we see that you're actively standing behind your words and actually doing something. And so I think it's been actually very positive, even response, and it's actually helped us build a stronger community overall. Not
It's an interesting question because when I first started getting involved, that wasn't a thought of how it's going to help my business. It was, I got to get out of this kitchen and do something different. It really was, in a lot of ways, selfish for me to want to do things because I enjoy getting out. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy being the center of attention. I enjoy being in the, doing it. And it was a great way to feel like you're doing the right thing. So in a lot of ways, it is in a selfish way, but hopefully I'm making a difference and helping at the same time. What have I seen since doing that? I think a lot of what Sarita said was similar. Is people within our community see what you're doing, they appreciate that, and they want to support a business that does that. I also think my own staff see what I'm doing, and they're like, what? You're going to talk in front of a Senate committee? What? And explain to them what I'm doing, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, that's really cool. And especially with today's young kids, I find they want to work for a company or a business owner that is doing something positive, more than just owning a business. And I found I've been able to have a lot more retention amongst my staff because they appreciate what our business stands for, what I stand for. So I think that's been a huge benefit as well. But ultimately, it's selfish.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, we're going to go a little off script here because you all have answered my next question. But this question is going to be for Aaron, Sydney, and Representative Ricks. What advice would you give to folks in the audience here that are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners, or the hope of doing one of those to be civically engaged?
So one of the things that small business owners or just community members or anyone here that's interested in being civically engaged is lending your voice. So we are always looking for people who can give testimony on bills. You can bring bill ideas to your legislator. The best time to do that is like right after session, or you can engage them during session through emails, and then maybe ask to go to coffee. I'll give 30 minutes to my constituents and sit there and meet them for coffee, do a Zoom meeting, just to hear what the bill ideas are. So if you have something that you know is impacting you, you can do that. We need people who now is even more convenient. You can do it by Zoom. You can give a testimony on a bill or something that you're really interested in that you want to lend your voice to. We did some legislation on towing, and so many people had negative impact, for towing. So people, we had over 5-6 hours of testimony with people telling their towing stories and their horror stories on how they had been towed and the predatory nature of some of the tow truck industry. So you can always get involved. You can knock doors. You can volunteer. If you have somebody in your community, a representative that you think you believe in and they share your values, you can knock doors. You can make phone calls. You can write postcards. there's so many different ways to do that. I think that's a good place to start. Was that? Oh, sorry.
All right, it's coming. Anybody else smell that, by the way? It smells really good coming from the. Anyway, so yeah. I think the biggest thing is that all of you in this room can and are making a difference, and you might not even realize it. So for me, a lot of the work that I've done is very rarely acknowledged immediately. But you'll be in a hall somewhere, or somebody will come into your business, and they'll be like, hey, I really like that thing you did, or that really inspired me, or I saw a post about this, I saw that you did this, and that inspired me to do this thing. And so one of the biggest things I see is just the difference that everybody makes. It might not seem apparent in the moment, but everybody here is making a difference because people are watching all the time. And so setting that good example and getting involved is huge. And civic engagement doesn't have to be as big as testifying at the Senate or helping to create bill ideas. Something that I did that was civic engagement recently was I played my violin at our local city's Potato Day. And that's civic engagement. I mean, you are getting in the community and you are providing something, you're helping people. And music is another one of those things that I think is just so powerful to move people. But there's lots of things you can do. You can walk into every city has a local history museum about the city. Walk into there, you can volunteer. You can go to your local nonprofit organizations and see, what can I be doing to help you? How can I get involved? And so that's the biggest thing, is that no matter how big or small whatever you want to do is, it's going to make a huge difference to the people that you're affecting and who are right in front of you and who are maybe far away. So it's like, civic engagement to me is like taking a pipette and dropping some water into a pool. And that ripple goes out, and you sort of lose track of where that ripple is going, but it's affecting all of those different people that it's radiating through. So even if somebody's not right next to you, you could be helping countless people and you don't even know it. So to me, one of the biggest things is just to get started. Go find something you're passionate about and say, hey, how can I help? And that's usually what I say. I sit down with people all the time from my university that I went to. I have lunch, coffee with professors. I have lunch, coffee with legislators. And I just say, all right, so here's an issue I'm seeing. How can I help? Or even better is if I come with a solution. People like that a lot better. So, the two biggest things that I say for getting engaged in anything are read up and show up. So do your research. What are you going to be doing? And then show up and talk to the people who you want to be working with and who you want to do something with. And that's super powerful, just doing those two things. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sydney, same question.
Something that I was going to add to everything that was said already. I speak to a lot of individuals and I'll ask them what their values are, and sometimes they look at me like they're deers caught in headlights. Like, what does that mean? And I've done a lot of development around my values. I could read them off to you in a heartbeat, right? But not everybody does that type of work. And so I highly encourage all of you here, if you haven't done that before, start really looking into what your own values are, because that's really going to help guide you, whether it's involved with civic engagement, whether it's in the workplace, right? What are you willing to put up with? What are you not willing to put up with, right, in a work environment and culture? So that would be my biggest thing to add to all the amazing things that were said, is really understand who you are, what your values are. Also, too, don't be afraid to get into a room with other thought leaders, right? Even people who have different opinions than yourself. I do that, and sometimes it chaps my, it gets on my nerves. But I also want to understand, right, and really feel what people are talking about. Like, what is their reasoning as to disagreeing with something that I truly believe in? And a lot of times I find that I really start to understand where that person's coming from. I might not agree with them, but I can at least have more insight into what their belief is. And maybe there's some way that we can work together to come to a common understanding for the better good of everyone else that we're working with. So those are two of the big things. Really understand your own values, and then also don't be afraid to get into a room with people who don't necessarily agree with you and have tough conversations. It's not always fun, but I think it's highly important.
Totally agree. Thank you. So as we are winding down, most likely if you've ever worked with small business owners, we are a chatty bunch. So we will absolutely be going over, but I'm going to try to reel it in a little bit. We have a couple more questions. I ask for this next question, if you can keep it to one story in 1 minute, that would be awesome. But this is for everybody. What is one, I know you all have had a lot of experiences, but what is one of your most proud moments as an entrepreneur getting civically involved? Sydney, you have the mic.
No. All right. So I will tell you that one of my proudest moments with getting civically involved was actually, like I had mentioned earlier, with the Crown Act, because that was the first time that I had taken the initiative to get downtown, to show up, to actually speak, give my testimony. And I will tell you, I was terrified, because growing up, to me, going down to a city building was a bad thing. Like I was taught, those are places you do not want to go. Not only that, it is confusing. I don't know if you've ever been inside, but it is like a maze that a sociopath created in there. So really, I was just proud that I showed up and I parked my car and found the room, and I actually spoke, and then, I didn't know what the end result would be, but I was just super proud in that moment afterwards, because it was a lot of mind games that I had to work through just to do those things that day. So yeah, that's my story.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I think I'm going to use my most recent one. And it's one that actually it wasn't until days later that I was like, oh, this was kind of a big deal. Only because I really don't like public speaking. And so what I was really stressed about was that I had to speak in public. So it started back in March. And this also kind of shows what your voice can do. And I didn't even realize what a big deal it was at that moment in time. So back, I think in February or March, I was invited to do a roundtable discussion with Senator Bennett on drug pricing. And it was just me and 3 other people that were invited to this discussion with him. It was on Zoom. But there were, of course, other people. And I'm glad it was on Zoom, because I didn't realize how many people were watching this as well. I didn't realize it was being live streamed. And it was not my best moment, I didn't think, because I just found out we had to put my dad in hospice too. So it was just one of those days where you're like, okay, just get it together, do this thing. That next week, I got an email from his policy advisor stating that Senator Bennett was really impacted by what I had to say, and if he could use my name, if Senator Bennett could use my name and my experiences while he was in the Senate and in committee as he was fighting for the drug bills. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's cool. So then come months later, he's working on the IRA, and the Senate was working on passing it over the weekend. And I got an email again from his policy advisor saying, hey, Senator Bennett is planning a celebration roundtable, is what he said, if it passes over the weekend on Tuesday afternoon, and Senator Bennett would like you to attend if you're possible and be a part of the roundtable. Well, you're not going to say no, so of course I said yes. Come Sunday, Sunday morning, I get a call from his communications director and said, so you agreed to do this. It's going to be a celebration press conference is what it's being called. And so you will be speaking at the podium and giving a speech. It's like, that's very different than a round table. I don't like speaking in public. So all in my head, all I'm thinking is, oh, and it's at City Park. I'm like, so I'm speaking at a podium at City Park. But I've already agreed to it, and it's you can't say no at this point. So this is Sunday morning, and I was up in the mountains. So okay, so I have to put together a speech now for Tuesday afternoon. And so I took an old testimony that I'd done for the Colorado prescription bill the year before and reworked it, and I texted Lindsay, and Lindsay's like, we have people that can help you with that. So I sent it to Lindsay on Monday, and their speech writers at Small Business Majority cleaned it up for me. And then that's all I did for 24 hours was sit there and read the speech in front of my mirror because I was so stressed. And then I got to Tuesday afternoon, and so she had sent me the list of speakers and the program, and it was a joint press conference for Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper. And there were 3 speakers for healthcare and 4 speakers for the renewable energy, and then Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett were speaking. So I got there, and so we were all sitting on stage together. I'm on stage with 2 U.S. senators, sitting there on stage with them, and then speaking, and then the senators were speaking. And in the moment, all I could, I have to speak. It wasn't until days later that I was like, oh, I was invited by a U.S. senator to speak at his press conference and sit on stage with him and speak. It was pretty cool. But it took me a few days to realize that. So yeah, that was probably a big moment. But it was just because of this roundtable discussion and what I said impacted him enough that he wanted me there to speak at the press conference. So yeah.
So sometimes, with civic engagement, we always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So, yeah, somebody's going to take, something that's supposed to be yours. But during COVID, again, it's going to be a COVID example, the governor's office, Colorado Department of Public Health, started doing what they called equity clinics. And the equity clinics came about because there were certain people, community members, who felt left out. They didn't know how to navigate. How do you get a vaccine? There was the rules. You had to be 70 years old. Then it dropped to 60. And for many community members, they didn't even know where to go, how to sign up. It was a lot of confusion around that. So once we were briefed by Colorado Department of Public Health that these clinics were starting, I realized that there was a gap in our community for immigrant communities again. Nobody knew where to go. And I called community members from the Ethiopian community to do the first immigrant clinic, COVID vaccine clinic. And we did that in Valentine's Day of 2021. It was a big deal. I mean, the people were so grateful. I mean, they were all like, oh, thank you, thank you. It was like they hit the jackpot or something. It was so amazing. But it was a way of advocating for a group of people who are typically left out, who don't know how to really navigate systems sometimes, and just kind of move the confusion by bringing it into the community. And so I was very proud of that moment to make sure. And from there, we continue on with those clinics within our Korean communities in different parts of the Denver metro area.
All right, and for you too, we just have a couple of minutes left, but please, you're so fine. Please make sure that you share your story, but just want to be mindful of time as well. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think for me, it goes back before I was a business owner. In 1989, I was a freshman at University of Denver. I know I don't look that old, thank you. And I had a wonderful professor my freshman year, and we had to do a project, and I don't even remember the parameters of it, but somehow I started an organization on campus called PASS, and that was stood for Pioneers Assisting the Samaritan Shelter. So that was my project with this professor. So I put together a group. I ended up having about 7, 8 people be a part of that, and I think every other week we would take a trip down here, not too far from here, a few blocks away, and we would go to the Samaritan Shelter and help out in any way possible, whether it was serving food, cleaning, whatever it was. But that experience to not only have that civic engagement, but learn about organizations, how to work with people, how to motivate people, all the above has served me so well today. So that experience, I think, is one of the ones I'm more proud of as a 18-year-old at that time, attempting to put that together, and I'm sure I made many missteps, but I also learned from it. So There. Was that quick enough?
Yeah.
That was nice. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is actually very recent. One of the things that I like to do is to connect people, and also to help locally as well. So I'm, kind of a local person, even though there's other broader things that we do as well. One thing is that, so I'm from Greeley, Colorado, in Weld County. All right, how many of you know where that is? How many of you know the strains between the state and our county that exist? Yeah. So the state and our county don't necessarily get along very well. But here's the thing, is that Greeley, the people of Greeley within the city of Greeley and Weld County still need support, right? And they're still in the state. And so one thing that I recently helped to get pushed through was there's the Main Streets grant, which is happening. And there is a street, a main street right next to campus and then downtown in Greeley that looks horrible. And it suffers because we actually call it a force field where large populations of people won't cross it because it looks dangerous. So what I did is I connected the city and the DDA with some people at the state to try and get the Main Street grants to go through. And I just so happened also to be on the economic committee who was reviewing some of the applications. So I made this whole connection, and then I basically sat down with the committee and some of the politicians and said, look, I know Greeley and Weld County isn't your favorite. However, I think this will really help the community in these ways, and I advocated for it. And the city did end up getting the grant, a $2 million grant to redo that part of the city, that little stretch, 3 blocks. And it's a match program, so the city has to front some money as well. But in the next few years, when this project is complete, it will completely revitalize the area. And I also have a number of clients who are on that street as well. And this should probably help people to walk across the street from the university. And actually, so that's how these things can sort of web together and to help a lot of people. And everybody has the power to do that, to connect people and to get civically engaged in some capacity.
Thank you so much. Well, folks, I know that we are about time, but I do want to, I know that I promised stats earlier, but just so you guys can put this in perspective, there's about 5.6 million people in Colorado. To get an initiative on the ballot, you only need 4,000 signatures, and there are 653,000 small businesses registered in Colorado. So I feel like between all of us and the power of many, we can get things done. So just wanted to share that with you. Before we dismantle for the afternoon, I would love to, again, have a round of applause for our amazing panel. We have Aaron, Jeff, Representative Naquita, Sarita, as well as Sydney. Thank you all for being here. Denver Startup Week, thanks for having us. And again, I'm Jason with Good Business Colorado, my good friend Lindsay with Small Business Majority. Between the two of us, we have a lot of resources and information that we can share with you all. So feel free to reach out to both of us if you have questions. Thanks everyone for being here today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
And we got some swag and flyers over there, so please take it. Reach out to us, either of us, if you have any questions on how to start your journey, or any of the 5 amazing panelists. Another round of applause.